Welcome back to another episode of Extra Points. Joining me today is a sports editor, Madison, Hricik. Final score, 63-7. Obviously, not a very competitive game today, but JMU came out with a win. What did you see out of the Dukes?
Well, I think going into this game, we expected that not necessarily tough level of competition that JMU is going to see later on in this season, but, I think a 63-7 win is pretty dominant in regardless of what scheme of football you're looking at. I thought both sides of the ball played very well. I thought the offense was exceptional tonight, being able to succeed both passing and rushing. Having 4 running backs score today was huge for JMU. They had not had a rushing touchdown yet, since all 6 touchdowns against Middle Tennessee were all touchdown passes by Todd Centeio. So I really did enjoy seeing the running backs get on the scoreboard today.
You talk about Todd. Maybe today wasn't his biggest game, but 9 touchdowns so far this season. What have you seen out of him, and is this a surprise at all?
I don't think it's necessarily a surprise considering the hype that he's garnered throughout his collegiate football career. What I do love is that it wasn't in 2 full games. He only played a half before Billy Atkins and Alonzo Burnett Jr., the senior, came and stepped in and took over for that second half. So, I think 9 touchdowns and really 6 quarters, if I'm doing my math right, is quite impressive. That's averaging to a little bit more than a touchdown per quarter, and that is a great statistic that JMU has moving forward into conference play.
Obviously the offense is on every firing on all cylinders right now. First game over 40 points, this game over 60 points. I guess what is that focal point of the offense this year, and what have you seen out of them?
I think the biggest thing that the offense has right now is they have versatility on their side. They're able to score both in the air game and in the rush game. And that's happened before with JMU, but I don't think I've seen it to this extent where it's this deep on top of the versatility. When you have a running back room that has 4 of them scoring in a game and you have 6 touchdown passes in a game, you're seeing so many different players get involved, and that's going to be really big for JMU moving forward, especially with some of these top Sunbelt East programs that beat Power 5s today as well.
We've talked a lot about the offense. The defense, though, stout these first 2 weeks, only allowing 2 touchdowns combined the first 2 weeks. I guess what is the focal point of that defense?
The defense has been through a lot. We've talked about this multiple times. The defense has been through so much during training camp. They had COVID run through the program at one point during training camp. They've had players hit the transfer portal, this, that, the other thing, you name it, the defense has been through it. But I think what they've really done a nice job with and what has been so successful for them is that next man up mentality. When we were talking to James Carpenter, he brought it up again. I think every single interview we've done with a JMU player, they've mentioned next man up, next man up. Everyone's got to step in. Everyone's got to do their part. And adopting that mentality and really using that as well as they have been has been really big. And, James Carpenter really was a standout in tonight's game.
No game next week, obviously. Dukes have a bye. Probably a needed bye, as we know. Appalachian State, the Dukes' next opponent in 2 weeks, just beat the number 6 team in the country in Texas A&M. So, from your perspective, after hearing them, Appalachian State, beating one of the top 10 teams in the country, what can the Dukes look forward to in that opponent, and how can they come out in 2 weeks and try to take a victory away from them?
I think this is going to be a heated, physical, intense game when JMU moves down to Boone in 2 weeks. There's so much that's going into that game. There's past history that's involved. 2008 is going to be a year that's going to be mentioned a lot in the next 2 weeks. You have depth on both ends of the balls. You've got 2 very stellar quarterbacks that had great starts to their year. Chase Cunningham for App State has had 2 really strong games, and Todd Centeio, as we've mentioned before, has also had really strong games. So you've got those 2 that are going to be paired up together. That's going to be talked about a lot. And, I think a lot of people are really excited about App State because they just beat Texas A&M. I'm interested to see how much that's going to continue being relevant once JMU does make it down to North Carolina. But I think, seeing that and knowing the players, they went back into the locker room, and that was one of the first things they said they talked about was that win. I think that really just puts that extra motivation. So I think this extra bye week is going to be really big for JMU. I think it's going to be good to get the people that did not play tonight a chance to rest up. I know Signetti mentioned that Reggie Brown and Chris Chukwuneke did not play. Not necessarily any major injuries. It was just more so didn't want to chance it. So that really does kind of bode well with that bye week of getting that extra good to go.
And I guess finally from here at Bridgeport Stadium, Coach talked about this, the thing they needed to improve on. He talked about it last week too, the penalties. How can the team improve on that and try to cut some of those down?
I think it's the little things. I think when you get wrapped up in the adrenaline of a game, it can be sometimes a little difficult to manage those smaller details. Making sure that when you get a holding call, like Cole Potts did. I mean, making sure that you're not dragging that defensive player back after they're trying to get around you. It's those smaller things, but it's also the bigger things too. You know, that personal foul call went JMU's way, but in reality, like, that's not something that JMU can risk. That's the second game in a row when there's been a personal foul potential targeting call against the Dukes. So that's something that they need to be a little bit more mindful of. I understand they want to fly around, they want to have all this adrenaline, and they want to play physical. But as Signetti said, they have to stick to the basics and they have to play clean, because that's when an opponent is going to stomp right on you.
Thank you, Maddie. Madison, 63-7 here at Bridgeford Stadium. Dukes take down Norfolk State. Bye week next week, 2 weeks, Appalachian State at Appalachian State. It'll be a good game. Thanks for joining us.